I didn't believe it, but these are bred to taste like cotton candy, which is why they're called cotton candy grapes. And I had no idea, but they have seeds inside. And I wanted to see if they would germinate since I really want a cotton candy grapevine. I opened them up, revealed the seeds inside up close and personal, got them on a damp piece of paper towel, labeled them, sealed them up airtight in a bag, and in that moment, I knew I was gonna have to wait a while for these things to grow. But I also knew that I needed a plan because I was so intrigued by these. I wanted to know more about how they actually grow to taste like cotton candy. So as I waited for them to sprout tails, I decided that I would go find out more about cotton candy grapevines for myself. I flew all the way to Germany and found myself deep in the grape fields, and little did I know that this vineyard would have so much to tell me. Once I arrived, I couldn't believe my eyes. I had never seen how grapes are grown firsthand like this, so I was excited. We were in a beautiful little German town in the Rhine Valley with grapevines that were built hundreds of years ago.
We're going on a wine tour in the German vineyards, so come along.
I learned that the cotton candy grape was first bred in 2003, but it wasn't until 2011 until they began appearing in stores.
Arrive to the vineyard.
Farmers work pretty hard to find a good balance of flavors that makes the grapes taste just like cotton candy.
So cool.
Which is why it probably took 8 years for them to appear in stores. The reason they taste like cotton candy is because 2 different varieties of grapes were crossbred to make a unique combination of flavors that mimics the sugary goodness of cotton candy. As we walked along the vineyard, we passed these beautiful wall arches that actually have a very specific purpose.
All the wine growers needed to have the best stone walls.
We learned that for the wine grower, these wall arches were a status symbol. If you had these arches, then your neighboring wine grower knew you were growing good grapes. As we walked along, we learned that every grape has aroma precursors from different fruits. Riesling, for example, and my favorite wine, has apple and peach flavors that are very typical, and they develop through alcoholic fermentation that we can taste and smell in the wine when we drink it.
Sometimes wine tastes like apple and peach, but really they're only made of grapes. While they're fermenting, they start to taste like other fruits. Let's keep going and we'll see the rest of the vineyard.
The white wines are usually more light flavors like apples, peaches, and the red are more dark flavors like cherry and forest berry. And as we walked, we noticed that the slope was very steep, and that in fact has a purpose. The best grapes in Europe grow on a slope of 68 degrees. At this vineyard, the grapes grow on a slope of 60 degrees.
One of the steepest in the world.
So you can see the comparison. The steeper the slope that the grapes grow on, the higher the quality of wine becomes.
It protects their grapes.
And that's because cold air masses flow down the slope and warm air stays up at the top, protecting the grapes from late frosts and as a result, making better wine.
This is a little example of how heavy grapes can be.
These are the boxes that are used to hand-pick the grapes, and then they have to be carried all the way down the slope and into the processing facility where the grapes are turned into wine. It's harder than you think to grow grapes good enough for wine. During the winter, the vines are cut back and the remaining shoots are tied to some wire so that when the summer comes back around, the nutrients can spread out perfectly and the grapes can grow back by summer. There are 3 quality wines. When you look into the vineyard, you can see the lower parts at the bottom. Those are the parts that yield a bigger harvest for wine. The grapes usually grow bigger too, and at the steeper part of the vineyard at the top, that's the smaller harvest because of the way they cut the plant at the top. But even though there's a smaller harvest, these are the grapes that make the best quality wine. The growers even keep these grapes longer in the tank on yeast, which means they have more time to develop flavor before they bottle them. Cotton candy wine would be insane to me. And it was so cool to be learning so much about how we go from grapes to wine. And as we continued walking, we saw this thing that looked like a little cliff. What it really was a glacial loess profile. Loess is soil, and this glacial profile is actually a natural reserve. What happened was 50,000 years ago. This loess soil was blown away as dust, and then it accumulated back together and morphed into a cliff that's over 24 meters tall. It's this soil that helps grapes develop a really soft taste, and it's also got many minerals. So this loess soil is really rare, and it's so cool to see in person. It makes amazing wine. As we walked past the loess soil, we went through to the little peach trees, and we stumbled across this old wine press. It's crazy how they used to make gallons of wine with this little tool right here. And just down through the vineyard, there were more grapes growing on a steep slope. You know how when you leave apple juice at home for too long and it starts to ferment? Well, different wines have different tastes because some of them decide to spontaneously start to ferment before even entering the barrel. There's natural yeast in the grapes, so usually in the best wines, there's actually no added yeast into the mix. It's only the grape that goes from delicious cotton candy fruit to great wine. Or should I say, grape wine. The grapes get their cotton candy taste from a perfect mix of natural sugars present in the fruit. And honestly, the only thing that I was questioning was whether or not our grape seeds grew in that paper towel or not, and how possible it would be for me to eventually grow my own steep grape vineyard in Canada, because y'all already know I'm gonna try. But a lot of grapes, like cotton candy grapes, can also be grown in seedless varieties, and the way they do that is by grafting a piece of the parent plant and replanting them together to make a new plant. But for plants that don't grow on vines that you can't cut, scientists grow them by genetically engineering them and then pollinating the new plants by the engineered ones, rather than from a pollinator like a bee or butterfly, and that's how seedless fruits like watermelons are produced. But the inventors of cotton candy grapes wanted to bring back the natural flavors, so they tried growing them both with and without seeds. Of course, I like the ones with seeds better so that we can try to grow them. It's a lot easier to grow grapes by grafting a piece of the parent plant and planting that in the ground than by germinating seeds. So I was really unsure about what the status of our cotton candy grape seeds would be. But as we finished our time in the wine vineyards, we headed back to the shop for one last thing: wine tasting from the grapes grown in this vineyard. And of course, it tasted amazing. This experience was so great, and as I made my way home to check on our growing grapes, I finally arrived, immediately sprinted to open up the paper towel where the grape seeds were germinating. I had never successfully sprouted grapes before, so I was nervous, but this was the moment of truth. I opened up the paper towel to this. The seeds didn't mold over, which was a good sign, but they did turn kind of dark, and that's not the color you want to see when sprouting seeds. But I decided to leave them in the towel a bit longer. I'll keep checking on them, and I'll wait to see if they grow. So, as I wait to see what happens to these, I was excited that I got to learn so much more about cotton candy grapes, and I guess I now believe that these things really are naturally bred to taste like candy. And honestly, whoever made these needs a gold star. But you know what? I just want to see if mine are gonna grow so that I can live in the carnival.